Bontemps was part of the story that Adrian Wojnarowski reported about James Harden formally agreeing to his new contract. Him agreeing to the contract wasn't a surprise. We never thought he was leaving Philly. Him taking a pay cut was not a surprise. We knew that when he opted out of his $47 million player option that he did almost a month ago, a little under a month ago. But Bontemps, go over the dynamics of the contract, and we're going to take a look at what this means for him and the Sixers.
All right, so interesting deal on a couple of fronts. First of all, that James Harden took, as you said, a $14 million pay cut this year from where he was going to be originally. That is why the Sixers were able to sign his old pals, PJ Tucker and Daniel House, and continue to form Rockets Northeast with Tad Brown and Daryl Morey. On top of that, the fact it's only a one-year deal or with a player option for a second year is also interesting. James Harden certainly is hoping to be better this year than he was this coming year than he was last season. We'll see if that's going to be the case. We'll get into that. If he gets back to playing as an MVP caliber guy, he can opt out, presumably get a bunch more money next summer. If things go disastrously badly, presumably he could opt out, maybe go somewhere else. But, to me, this gives them a little bit of flexibility on both sides. And the other thing that's interesting about it is we've sort of been waiting for James Harden to sign this deal in the first place, right? Like, this has basically been agreed to for weeks. So to me, signing it now is an indication that the Sixers are done for business for now, and that they're, any attempts they were going to have to try to rework this roster further are probably not going to happen, because it seemed like they were waiting to do this until they knew they had,
at least on a major scale,
right
before the season.
Right, there could be something minor, but in terms of significantly reworking the roster, I think, to me, this is a sign that the Sixers are done with business until the fall, and generally this is what their team is going to look like.
Yeah, and the reason that you're saying that is that, so obviously if you use the full mid-level exception, which is about $10 million, that's what they used to sign PJ Tucker. Once you use that, you enact the hard cap. You can only go a certain amount of money over the tax line, and then you can't spend
roughly $6 million.
Right. So if James Harden had opted into that $47 million contract, or even had signed a new contract that was in the ballpark of the $47 million, the Sixers would not have been able to use that full $10 million non-taxpayer mid-level. They would have been reduced using the $6 million level. And we know that PJ Tucker had a lot of different suitors all offering him that $10 million. And that what ended up getting, I think, in addition to the fact he wanted to come play with James Harden again, I think, he also got, I believe, a player option on the third year, but all 3 years are guaranteed if he wants it. But he had to get that $10 million. So for the Sixers to get into that position, Harden had to drop that salary down. It also opened him up to signing Daniel House to the other exception, the biannual exception. And they made a trade on draft night. Danny Green's salary was not fully guaranteed. They did trade Danny Green to get DeAnthony Melton, but Danny Green would have been, probably waived had he just stayed on the roster. Well, maybe they could have traded him later, but that actually, I would say him taking that pay cut, McMahon, actually enabled the Sixers to add 3 players. You could make the case that he allowed them to add 3 players, or at least 3 players of that quality.
No, I think definitely. When you look at the math, it definitely allowed him to get Melton too.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.